On Business Incorporated today. South Africa inflation hits 13-year high. And World Bank releases a report on disruptions in economies. Kenya Airways cuts losses and records down to 9.88 billion shillings. Good afternoon. Welcome to Business Incorporated today, Wednesday, and it's a new one that we're bringing to you here on Channels Television. I'm Edie John Mekwa. We begin the program as usual with market numbers, of course, starting with Africa. I believe we have the numbers there. Yeah, Nigeria, the NGX had a bloodbath yesterday. We saw that the oil share index was down about 48,500 at the close of trading yesterday. At intraday today, however, it's positive. It looks like investors are taking advantage of that dip, and we see some bargain hunting. We don't know if this will last to the close of trade. But at intraday, the NGX is up 0.19%. And in South Africa, it's also positive 0.22% at 69,925.83, getting really close to the 70,000. And then in Northern Africa, we see that the EGX 30 is up also 0.74%. While Kenya has been in the negative since we saw the disruption and criticism of the presidential election result. And so we see yesterday it closed almost 1% down, 0.83, not looking very nice there for the continent. Well, from there, let's move to the Middle East now and see how that market is also doing in the Middle East, beginning with United Arab Emirates there. We see that the market is in the red, also 0.07% at just about 10,000 points, 10,011.56. Dubai is on the flip side, more than 0.5%, 0.62%. 3,413, and this, of course, is at intraday. We look at other region now. Saudi Arabia, it was down. Saudi Arabia was down almost 0.5%, but Qatar did the same thing as Dubai did, gaining 0.62%. So we see mixed sentiments in the Middle East as intraday. From there, we go to Europe and see what's the big news there. And one of the big news, I think the biggest news so far, is that Canada's Prime Minister and the Chancellor of Germany, the Prime Minister calls it historic step because they have come together and they're going to work on the energy price and energy supply, which has been a major, major challenge to Germany, especially among other countries, in the face of Russia invasion into Ukraine. Well, we have joining us for that conversation, Chris Koba, to give us the details of that agreement and cooperation that was signed, even though we do know that they don't expect supply until 2025. But we have Chris Koba now joining us. Hi, Chris. Good afternoon. So give us the details of this agreement between both parties. All right, I think we'll have to move on a bit and see if we can have Chris Koba join us later. But now let's go to London. It's good to have Juliana back. Juliana, good to see you. I know you were on with Ladi in the morning during business morning, but it's my turn now. Hi, Juliana. Can you hear me? Good afternoon.
I can hear you nice and clearly. You look fab, by the way.
Great, Juliana. I see you had a good time, a good holiday.
Much needed.
All right, you look it. So we see that expiration dates are going to be removed from stocks, commodities in supermarket. What's that about? And wouldn't that bring concerns about, health and all of that?
This is quite an interesting story, and I've got to say, I'm a sniffer. I'm somebody, if I look at food, I sniff it to make sure it's safe to eat. And I think there are so many people that are like me. You use your common sense and your intuition to know whether or not you should eat food. And I think in the UK, especially over the past couple of years, there has been some misconceptions about labels. So, of course, if a product says use by this date, then you have to use it by that date so that you can ensure that it's safe to eat. However, so many products, hundreds in fact, of products have been labelled with best before. So if you eat your bread before this date, it is at its freshest, or if you have this pepper before this date, it is going to be, a brighter colour and sharp and crispy. But this has seen millions, in fact tons, millions of tons of food being wasted in this country. Not only does that contribute towards the climate emergency we're going through, it also, wastes food and costs people a lot of money. We are going through a cost of a living crisis here, and so lots of supermarkets, including the big four, so that's Tesco, Sainsbury's, Morrison's, Asda, and others such as Waitrose, Aldi, Lidl, they've all joined into this effort to now stop using best before dates so that people can use the good old sniff test and look at a product to see whether it's good. Of course, if you're looking at a rotten tomato, you're not going to use it. But if it has got a few lumps and bumps, then it is good enough to use. There has been a little bit of controversy about this. There are some people, some charities that are suggesting that the reason why big supermarkets in the UK are doing this is so that because we're going through a cost of living crisis, families can eat gone-off food. I don't think that's the case, really. I think most people know that best before dates can be very, very misleading, especially for young children, because they see a really nice loaf of bread or, some milk in the fridge and it hasn't gone off, but the best before date has gone off, then you could throw it away, and it's not really great to teach people that. So all of the supermarkets, I believe from September, will stop using this best before dates and allow people to use good old common sense.
Good old common sense, Juliana. But I mean, looks like we're all adjusting to this year of the squeeze and finding ways, to maximize whatever we have. That's what it looks like. But I mean, this shouldn't come as a surprise that import from Russia has dropped with the sanctions and, of course, the efforts to put an end to the war. I believe that's what's driving this. That's what accounts for this.
Yeah, absolutely right. Shifting on to the ongoing war in Ukraine, which I believe has entered its 6th month this week on Ukraine's Independence Day. The Office for National Statistics here in the UK have released some data showing that imports from Russia into the UK dropped over 90% during the month of June. So before, imports from Russia were totaling up to £1 billion a day. That's dropped short to about £33 million a day. So well off what it used to be. Of course, this is down to sanctions. We know that the UK are leading the Western alliance in putting crippling sanctions on the Kremlin and those close to the Putin regime. And also as well, lots of the imports that are coming into the UK are now heavily taxised, and there are so many import duty charges that have to be paid. So many people just cannot afford to do that. Also as well, the Office for National Statistics have shown that during that same month in June, for the first time since records began in over 25 years, the UK imported no fuel from Russia. Now, this is really stark because we know that Russia was a huge deliverer of fuel to the United Kingdom. But again, as part of that Western alliance and the European Union's pledge to phase out Russian fuel completely, I believe by 2027, Britain are doing that. They actually have gone a little bit further and said that they want to do that by the end of the year, but they've managed to do that during the month of June. So really just go to show the stark difference between what their relationship is like now compared to what it was just 6 months ago.
Well, the realities of a time. But let's look at the market, Juliana. How's it doing at this time?
Not great. As you said, I was in conversation with Laddie this morning on Business Morning, just looking at what is going on with energy prices here in the UK that are really crippling our households. We're expecting an update from Ofgem, the energy regulator, on Friday to increase the energy price cap from where it is at the moment, which is at £1,975, to £3,500. That is an 80% jump, something that most people in this country just simply cannot afford. That has fretted investors a little bit. There were some hopes that there could be some deal brokered between energy bosses and the British government. Kwasi Kwarteng has been speaking to the CEO of one of the biggest energy firms in the UK, Scottish Power, but it doesn't appear as if those talks have become fruitful at the moment, but fingers crossed they will do by the end of the week. But at the moment, the all-share is down 0.44%, the FTSE 100 down 2 at 0.38%, and the FTSE 250, that domestic market, down by 0.66%. The British pound is not faring any better as well. It's currently trading down against the US dollar by 0.43%, down 2 against the euro by 0.07%, and down on the Japanese yen at intraday by 0.53%, Inni.
All right, Juliana, thank you so much for that. We'll do this again tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of your day. See you tomorrow. All right, so that story we had from Germany, Berlin, to be precise, with Chris Kober, giving us some details about that pact between Canada and Germany. They call it historic, and it's supposed to at least provide some energy and reduce the cost of energy in the country, but that will be from 2025. We have Chris Kober now to give us details of that meeting.
The two countries aim to, quote, closely collaborate on all aspects necessary to kickstart the hydrogen economy and to create a transatlantic supply chain for hydrogen well before 2030. First deliveries are intended to start in the year 2025. According to the statement, Canada is to pour billions of dollars into developing technology and infrastructure. Germany says it's committed to supporting domestic importers on establishing an international trade corridor. Germany's Chancellor Olaf Scholz, who was accompanied on this trip by his deputy Habeck and a large delegation of business and industry leaders, called the agreement an important step not only for strengthening bilateral economic relations, but also for a sustainable energy supply for the future. The use of hydrogen does not produce greenhouse gases. To produce it, water has to be split into hydrogen and oxygen by electrolysis, which is only climate friendly if sustainable energy is used. Now, both parties signed this agreement in Newfoundland, Canada's easternmost province, which is considered a favorable location for the production of renewable hydrogen. The region is very windy and sparsely populated. At the same time, German energy companies E.ON and Uniper have signed a memorandum of understanding with Canada's Everwind on the sidelines of these talks, with the aim of importing climate-neutral hydrogen from Canada on a large scale starting 2025. Accordingly, the companies are each seeking a purchase agreement for up to 500,000 tons of ammonia, the chemical used to transport hydrogen every year.
Chris, thank you so much. You'll certainly be looking forward to that and see how it will help the country reduce the pressure on energy prices. Let's take a break now. After the break, we will come back with stories, especially from the African continent. We have loads of that for you here on Business Incorporated on Channels Television. You join us again. Welcome back. You're still watching Business Incorporated here on Channels Television. Let's have that conversation now. In the first half of 2022, African startups raised $3.1 billion. That's according to the Big Deal, a growth of 82% year on year, despite the funding winter ravaging global ecosystems. Well, this is impressive, obviously, considering that in 2021, full year, startups raised a record $4.4 billion. But who's giving them this money? Where is it coming from? And how are they using it? And how sustainable is this? Looking at the long-term operation, we have Adesola Afolabi, Deputy Editor at STARS, to speak to this. Hi, Adesola. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us, Adesola. So this is a lot of money. Who's giving these guys this money?
Hi, Amy. Good afternoon, and thanks for having me on your show. I guess, like you said, there are lots of funding coming into, the African technology ecosystem. And based on, the research we've done and articles we've published, you see that some of this funding comes in from, both foreign investors and African investors as well. So you see that playing out in terms of foreign investors, in terms of people, investors from, different continents, from Asia, from Europe, and of course we have like homegrown investors as well. So these are the two major categories.
So is this sustainable? I mean, because it's a new thing, so a lot of people are moved by it, and then we see them sponsor. But do you see this being sustainable?
So when you say sustainable, I mean, I guess what you're referring to is how far can we sustain? How long can we, have this funding, keep coming into the kind of startups we have? Yeah. If that's what you mean, I believe just based on the kind of people that are funding these startups, I believe that there is room to be able to sustain the level of capital that these investors, pump into the startups. Again, sustainability is a function of the work that these startups, are set, to do, or the solutions that these startups, are set up to provide. So, based on the kind of solutions that we keep seeing that are, solving the pain point of Africans, we can speak to how much more income and capital can, be pumped into these businesses and keep them, afloat, keep them going, keep them expanding, essentially.
So let's look at the other way now. Are the startups using these funds efficiently? Because that's also another factor that will determine if the funds will keep coming. And if, startups do not have to remain startups forever. Would you say they are efficiently using these funds?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Falabi. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, so I was asking if the startups are using the funds efficiently from your findings. Okay, looks like we have a little bit of network hitch there with Avishala. We'll see if we can get her on before the show is over. Now, moving on now, a World Bank report says that natural disasters cost Nigeria and other low and middle income countries $390 billion annually in lost revenue. That's because of power, telecommunication, transportation, and water disruption. This was disclosed in an article by Jennifer Sauer, the Global Director for World Bank Group's Climate Change Global Practice, titled Making Every Drop Count, from water to climate. It bemoaned how the water cycle was being disrupted by climate change, leading to droughts and floods that were more frequent and severe. The report further notes that improving the resilience of those networks would cost about 3% of the total capital investment, but the avoided disruptions will save 4 times that amount, an estimated $4.2 trillion over the useful life of new infrastructure. And then we go to South Africa, where inflation rate accelerated to a 13-year high of 7.8% in July from 7.4% in June, staying above the upper limits of the central bank's target range, which is between 3% and 6%. The latest reports released today by the country's statistics office says that the acceleration in inflation rate was largely driven by rising transport and food prices. Similarly, prices of food and non-alcoholic beverages increased 9.7% on the year. In July, the index for oils and fats registered an annual increase of 36.2%. At the same time, transport goods and services posted an annual price increase of 25%, with fuel prices up 56.2% compared with July last year. The reading is the highest since the 8% annual rate registered in May 2009, when Africa's most developed economy grappled with currency depreciation during the global financial crisis. And still in South Africa now, but China's General Administration of Customs and Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Affairs said they've lifted the ban on wool and other cloven-hooved animal skin products imported from South Africa In a statement released, both the government agency says this comes after they conducted a full consultation and risk evaluation process. The Chinese embassy says it will continue to work extensively in South Africa to alleviate further unparalleled bilateral trade and economic cooperation. China has been South Africa's largest trading partner for 13 consecutive years. In 2021, the total trade volume between China and South Africa reached $54.35 billion, with a year-on-year growth of 50.7%, as China's imports from South Africa reached $33.23 billion, I beg your pardon, that's up 59.6% year-on-year. We move to Kenya, where the national carrier says the recovering global air travel helped its airline to further narrow its losses in the second quarter of this year, even as high fuel costs weighed down its performance. In its latest report, Kenya's Airways says it's reported a half-year loss of 9.88 billion shillings, which is narrower than the 11.48 billion shillings loss it reported in the same period a year earlier. The performance came as its revenue jumped by more than 3/4 to 48.10 billion shillings on account of higher booking revenues. Kenya Airways chairman Michael Joseph says the opening of borders around the world has led to quick rebound in some key markets. He adds that the airline will continue to focus on the restructuring process that it started at the end of last year. Well, that's it on the program today. Thank you so much for being a part of the Wednesday edition of Business Incorporated. We have a fresh one for you tomorrow. I'm Ini John Mekwa. Enjoy the rest of your day.